Awesome. Well, again, I want to welcome all of you to Cedar Point students. If this is your first time with us, or maybe you just haven't been in a while, you never got to meet me the first time that you were here, or the second time, I just want to say I'm so glad that you are here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike, and I am married to my lovely wife, Katie, and together we have our son, Cade. That's a picture of them. Yes, I married up, I know. I definitely married up. I like it. And that is our son, Cade, okay? He just started kindergarten last week. He's at Justice, so any Justice students in here? Yeah. So he has Miss Gocher as his teacher, so if you know anything about her, come let me know and everything. All I've heard is awesome stuff. But let me tell you something, okay? I, by myself, am a super competitive person. I hate to lose, okay? So when it comes to me competing in things, I have like 0 to 20% where I'm like, okay, yeah, we can just have fun. But there is nothing between 21% and 99%, which means this. You get me over 20%, I'm going 100%, and I'm playing to win, and I'm going to let you know about it if I win, okay? And if I lose, then you cheated. No questions asked. That's how it goes, right? Now, here's the problem. My wife also is super competitive and hates to lose, okay? Matter of fact, we don't play games at our house. You know why we don't play games at our house? Because her and I will end up in an argument. One of us will be pouting. The other one will be like living it up because we beat the other person and rubbing it in their face. And it's just not good in the Capel household for one of us to be pouting while the other one's rubbing it in, okay? It's just not good for us. Herein lies the problem, is when you have a competitive person and a competitive person get married and then they have a child, they pass those genes on to their children. And that 5-year-old little boy loves to compete and he hates losing. Let me tell you, everything with him is a competition. Absolutely everything. Brushing his teeth, competition. Getting in the car, competition. Putting your seatbelt on, competition. Like literally getting into bed at night and getting under the blankets, competition. Everything with him turns into a competition. Who can get dressed the fastest in the morning? Who can shower the fastest? Like, it's always a competition. And if I beat him, there's another rule in the Capel household, and that is this. Cade wins everything. Because if he doesn't, he loses it. He hates to lose. Absolutely hates to lose. Now, again, he gets that from me. He gets that from his mom. We just absolutely love winning. Now, there are certain things that we have played with him where it's easy to know who wins and who loses, right? Like we can play sports and say, hey, we're going to play basketball and we're going to play till 11, and he'll keep score in his head. He'll know, and he'll let us know who's winning and what the score is. And he'll let us know how many points he scored as well. And so we've got this game one time called like Don't Break the Ice. Y'all ever played that little game? Because we want to teach him that it's okay to lose as long as you're giving your best and trying hard, and too, that you can improve upon yourself. It's not always about in that moment of winning. It's how you bounce back after you've failed. And so we got this game, Don't Break the Ice, to teach him that, hey, it wasn't dad. You did it, and it fell through. And as a result of that, you ended up losing. And it's been a really good teaching tool, but there are some things in life that it's not as easy to know whether or not we're winning or losing in, right? Like, it's easy to look up at the scoreboard and say, yep, you lost. It's easy to look at your report card and know that you might be succeeding in a certain class, or that certain class might have you kind of like, yeah, right now, I'm losing. I'm losing in math, right? It's real easy when you get that paper back and it's graded in that red ink and they've got that like 75 C- circled on your paper, and you're like, yeah, I'm definitely not winning on that assignment, right? It's real easy in sports and in school to know whether or not you're winning, but then again, there's those things that aren't as easy to measure. One of those, let's talk about this for example. How about here on a Wednesday night at Cedar Point Students? How do we know whether our youth ministry, I say our youth ministry because you're a part of it. We don't do ministry for you around here. We do ministry with you. That's why when you come to check in, you'll see students serving at the check-in table. This is why when you look around in this room during worship, there are students up here doing worship. This is why right now you see students in the back running lights, running cameras, running our live feed. Because we're all about doing ministry with students. So when I say this is our student ministry, this is your student ministry. You have ownership in it. So the question that I have for you is, how do you know whether we're winning or not? What's our scoreboard? You can say, well, Pastor Mike, isn't it like if a lot of people are here, is that the right way to keep score? Because we're all about being a story-changing place, right? And just because somebody comes doesn't mean that their story's been changed. This is a lesson that maybe a lot of you can learn, but just because somebody comes to church does not mean that they have a relationship with Jesus. That was my story all through middle school and all through high school. My parents made me go to church. I hated it. I would literally avoid my house on weekends so I didn't have to go to church. I would make up lies about the youth pastor and the kids that went to the youth group and the youth leaders. And it had nothing to do with them. It was just the fact that I wanted nothing to do with God. And so I would try to avoid it and give my parents any excuse possible. Hey, somebody's bringing me a wallet. Look at that. Is that yours? All right, you can come see me afterwards. Anybody else want to give me anything while we're at it? No. Okay. But all through middle school, all through high school, I would pretend to be sick. I would lie to my parents and tell them that I was sick just so I didn't have to go to church. I hated church. Wanted nothing to do with it. And even though I went because they made me go, there was nothing that took place in me during those times other than seeds being planted in my heart and being watered each and every single time that I went. But I didn't come to know God until between my freshman and sophomore year of college. So it took a lot of planting, a lot of watering to get me there. So just because somebody comes doesn't necessarily mean that we're winning, right? So here's what I want to do tonight. As we start off the school year, what I wanted to do tonight is I want to share a message with you called This Is Us. This is us, okay? And what I want to do is I want to share with you our wins and how we measure whether or not as a student ministry we are being successful or not successful, okay? So with that being said, I hope you're taking notes. I want to encourage you to take notes. If you're not taking notes, you need to take notes. And here's why you need to take notes, because I want you to pray over these notes and pray about how you can help either take these steps to help us win or help somebody else to take these steps to help us win. So first thing I want you to write down in your notes is this. Win number one, and there's 3 of them, okay? 3 wins. Win number one is this, is that we want to introduce students to a real relationship with Jesus. We want to introduce students to a real relationship with Jesus. Can I be honest with you about one of my pet peeves? Is when we call what we do here just a service. I hate that. I want it to be an experience. I want it to be a place where you can come and have an experience with Jesus, where you can encounter that real relationship with him. So that's why I'm always real intentional about like, hey, we're glad to have you at our experience. Hey, invite somebody, bring them with you to our experience, because I want this to be an experience, not just a service that you just show up to and it just passes by and it just goes on without you. And we want it to be that thing where students are introduced to a real relationship with Jesus. This is why you hear us say over and over and over and over again here at Cedar Point Students, as well as Cedar Point Church, that this is a story-changing place. Because what we believe is we believe each one of your lives, look at your neighbor, say your life. And look at your other neighbor, say your life. Now point at yourself and say, my life, each one of them is made up of different seasons and different chapters. Like this year, you're in a different grade than you were last year. Hopefully. Just saying. Well, we'll move on. We still love you. You're accepted. You're welcome here. But here's the deal. It's a different chapter. It's a different season. And each one of those chapters and each one of those seasons ultimately makes up your life story, right? And we believe the moment that you open up your heart to God and receive the forgiveness of your sins when he died upon the cross for you, and you accept that by believing in your heart, putting your faith in him, and then confessing it with your mouth, that in that moment, God's Spirit and his presence comes to live on the inside of you, and your old sinful nature is then done away with, and you are a brand new creation from that point forward. And so you have that one key moment where you entered into a real relationship with Jesus, and from that point forward, you have a brand new story because Jesus is a part of it. What do we got going on back there? Exploding pop. I like it. Okay. We're celebrating Jesus. Like, we're like the NBA just busting up stuff. Like, all right, people's stories being changed, right? We're like, hey. Somebody was watching like ESPN and saw like them celebrate the national championship like with champagne, but we don't do that. So it's like, all right, we're doing it with Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew, like, right? So anyway, so we celebrate the fact that Jesus changes people's stories, and that's why we say this is a story-changing place. And this comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 17. Those of you, I want to encourage you, we're going to look at a few more verses in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 later, but it's an incredible chapter. I want to encourage you on your own personal time, go and read 2 Corinthians chapter 5. I believe it'll really speak to you, it'll really encourage you. But here's just what verse 17 says. It says, this means that anyone who belongs to Christ, in other words, anyone who has been introduced to a real relationship with Jesus, who belongs to him in that moment, has become what? A new person. A new person. The old life, the old you is now gone, and a new life has begun. In other words, anyone that belongs to Christ in that moment has had their story changed by him. That their old seasons, their old chapters, that old person is now done away with, and it's gone, and now they're a new person because Jesus' Spirit and his presence is dwelling and living on the inside of them. This is why every single Wednesday night, at the end of the night, we give an opportunity for people to accept Jesus into their life for the very first time or to renew their relationship with him. We do that because we are all about, it's a win for us when somebody raises their hand in that moment and responds, because we are all about introducing students to a real relationship with Jesus. This is also why worship is such a big deal to me. Because I can stand up here and I can preach till I'm blue in the face. And I can tell you all kinds of things to write down in your notes. But look up here at me. When we worship and you close your eyes and you lift your hands or you surrender what is going on in your life in that moment to God, and you begin to talk to him about it, and then he begins to deal with your heart and convict you or give you some steps to take to help you in that moment. God is speaking to you and he's revealing the love that he has for you in that moment. And it takes just one encounter with the love of Jesus to completely change your life. Hey, y'all listening? Don't miss out on this. I'm telling you, this is good stuff. But here's what I want you to realize. It only takes one encounter with the love of Jesus to change your life. That's what happened to me. Once I experienced that encounter with the love of Jesus, it completely changed my life. I was going to school to be a math teacher. Really? Who grows up wanting to do that? You, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for that. No, there are certain people that are gifted to do that. We'll get to that later in the message. But not me. And the moment I experienced the love of Jesus, my destiny completely changed. I went from doing life with no purpose at all to like, God, there's a purpose for me. Begin to reveal that to me. Help me to take the steps to do that. And I went from somebody that was wanting to be a math teacher and coach basketball to somebody that's like, you know what? I've got to reach people. I've got to reach this next generation. I've got to allow God to work through me to begin to share this message with other people. And I would love to do it with middle schoolers and high schoolers, since that's what I went through my whole middle school and high school life without knowing Jesus. And I made all these terrible decisions, and I carried around the guilt. I carried around the shame. I carried around the condemnation. I allowed my mistakes to define me. And I don't want that for any of you all. And that is why I do what I do, so that you can come to know and have an encounter with the love of Jesus and be introduced to that real relationship with Jesus and have your story changed by him. So every Wednesday night when somebody responds at the end, when they raise their hand, we celebrate that. We're going to celebrate that big, because that means we're winning in that moment. Now, not only are we about making sure we introduce people to a real relationship with Jesus, we also, and this is our second win, we also want to connect students with a small group. We want to connect students with a small group. Now, let me just tell you something. Look up here at me. I don't want anybody to miss this. If you don't hear anything else, this is what you need to write down in your notes for sure. You need to get into a small group. Now, the way that we do small groups around here is they take place after service. So around 8 o'clock, we'll dismiss everybody. We'll put 3 minutes up on the clock. You got 3 minutes to go and get a drink and, catch up with somebody. Try to catch up with that girl or that guy before they leave or whatever it is. And then you come back in here for small groups. And what we do with our small groups is you get the choice whether or not you take part in them. And you get to decide which group you go to, meaning they're optional for you. And we do that because this is a next step for us. And we want to provide a safe environment for you to sit down and be able to talk about God and begin to know people that are on the same course of life that you are, or that are desiring to go down the same course of life that you desire to go down. And we want to do that and provide that safe place with those safe people for you to be able to start having conversations about God with, so that you can learn to know people, so that when you do start struggling, you have people that you can go to and people that are going to hold you accountable and people that are going to help you in life. Matter of fact, what we believe around here is that each one of you matter. And because each one of you matter, we want to make sure that each one of you have a person and a place, meaning that you have that safe place with those safe people that you can ask questions about God. Because let's be honest, don't we all have questions about God? Anybody ever wondered, where did God come from? Anybody ever wondered, can God create a rock so heavy that he can't even lift it? See what I'm saying? We have questions about God. How about, why did that terrible thing happen? God, why didn't that prayer get answered? Guess what? In a small group, you're going to get to have people that are come around you and say, hey, you know what? I can't answer that question. That's going to be a question between you and God when you see him. But I've been there before. And guess what? If you'll keep pressing into God, you may not understand what's happening right now, but he'll work all things out for good for those who love him. And so we want to encourage you just to keep pressing into God. We're going to keep praying for you to get that answer. We're going to keep believing with you to get that answer. And here's something that I think is going to shock a lot of you. Y'all ready for this? Here's the shock factor. God uses people to help us. Yeah, I know some of you are like, what? Has he seen the people that are around me right now? I don't even think some of them have discovered deodorant right now. God, you're going to trust the kid that doesn't wear deodorant to speak into my life. Yes, he is. That's who you want to use to speak into my life, God? Yes. Now, there's some of you that are looking around the people around you and you're like, God, please use her to speak into my life. Please, God. Please. If you are real, God, use her to speak into my life for the rest of my life. She, I think, is the one, right? Some of you girls are like, oh, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Y'all are like, it's getting hot. You're taking the Bible and you're fanning yourself with the Bible. You're like, I saw him, and one day he was sweating on his forehead, and he decided to use his shirt to wipe the sweat off, and he had an ab. Oh my gosh. Come on. Some of you boys know you do that trick all the time. You're like, oh yeah, girl, you see my underwear line? And you know some of you girls are like, what? Like, he wears Hanes boxers. Come on. Y'all are laughing because you know it's true, right? Y'all are like, dang. Now, here's what you do. Next time your buddy goes to do that, you call him out on it. Be like, okay, which girl in here do you want to know what kind of underwear you wear? Yeah. Some of y'all are blushing right now. You're like, okay, here we go. Some of y'all are like, I ain't ever doing that again. I'm just going to do it on my Instagram account for everybody to see and see how many likes I get. Woo. I don't think y'all heard that one. Did y'all hear what I just said? Some of y'all are thinking like, oh, I ain't never doing that again. I'm just going to do it on Instagram now for everybody to see. Yeah. Don't even get me started on some of y'all girls and some of the pictures y'all be taking. I want to be real ornery right now. All right. Hey, reel it in, okay? We got to move on, okay? We got to move on. Here's the deal. God uses people to help us grow, okay? In Romans chapter 15, we're only going to look at verses 1 and 2, which, by the way, I highly encourage you to go read Romans chapter 14 and Romans chapter 15. If you're looking for a chapter of the Bible to read, Romans 8 is an incredible chapter of the Bible just to read in its own right. But read Romans chapter 14 and read Romans chapter 15. But there's a discussion that's going on in Romans chapter 14. And the author of Romans here is addressing a group of people because they're having kind of a debate. They're like about these idols and stuff. They're like, okay, is it okay for us to eat meat that has been offered to God? Like, what should we do in this situation? And he's building this case up, and he gets to Romans chapter 15, verse 1, and listen to what the author says. Everybody listen up, all right? No talking, listen up, okay? Romans chapter 15, here's what he says in verse 1. He says, we who are strong must be considerate of those who are sensitive about things like this. We must not just please ourselves. We, meaning all of us, hey, y'all listening? We should help others to do what is right and to build them up in the Lord. Now here's what you need to understand. When this says, we who are strong, I don't want you to view that like from a physical stature. Here's how I want you to view this. I want you to read this like it says, we who are more developed must be considerate of those who are still processing through a thought process and a belief, trying to form it in their life. So we who are more developed in our thoughts must be considerate of those who are not at that point, Tim, who are still processing, who are still trying to reach that conclusion. We must be sensitive to them about those things. And we must not just please ourselves, but we should help them do what's right and to build them up in the Lord. So look up here at me and put this in your notes, is that we have a responsibility to build others up. We have a responsibility to help others do what is right. Now, if you're going to do life alone, all by yourself, who is your we? Nobody. Don't have anybody. So what small groups are, why they're so important, why it's a win for us that students are connected to a small group is we want to be that we for you that you can come to and have that safe place with safe people that are going to help you to do the right thing and help build you up in the things of God. And that's what we want to do here. Because we have a responsibility to do that. Now, so picture this. You come to our church, you don't know anything about Jesus. First thing that we want to do, we want you to be introduced to a real relationship with Jesus. Then how are you going to learn to follow Jesus? That's when we want to get to that second win. That's when we get you connected to a small group. That's your next step in that journey. But guess what? Because we have a responsibility, it's not about you just continuing to grow and develop. It's about you then going back to people that don't know Jesus and inviting them along on this journey, because God uses people, right? And he wants to use you to help others come to know Jesus and to build them up. And so there's this ongoing process. There's people that are more developed than you that are going to come alongside, and they're going to pull you up and pull you along and help you to follow after God. But then at the same time that they're doing that, you're doing that with the people that are behind you in that journey, saying, hey, it's okay, I've been where you've been. I want to help build you up and help you to learn to do what's right and follow after God as well. And this is why this is our next win. Third win for us, and this is us, is that we want students to discover their gifts and use them to serve. We want students to discover their gifts and use them to serve. I said this earlier, but we do not do ministry for students. We do ministry with students. It's us coming together and helping you to discover your gifts and then use them to serve and make a difference in somebody else's life. And here's the thing. We need your gifts. Look at the person on your left. Look at him. Some of y'all don't know your left from your right. It was really confusing for me up here. Y'all are like, okay, yeah. What grade y'all in? No, I'm just kidding. We now know who had to repeat the same grade. I can just say that. Just saying. But hey, look up here at me. Don't look at the person on your left. Don't look at the person on your right. Look up here. You have some gifts that God has placed in you, and we need those gifts here. We need them here. We need you showing up and using your gifts. You say, well, I don't know what my gifts are. We will help you to discover your gifts. That's what we want to do. This is another reason why it's important that you're plugged into a small group, because you're going to get to meet other people that are serving and say, you know what? I'm really good at computers. I could do media. You know what? I play an instrument, or I can sing, or you know what? I have a smiling face. I can stand at the door and greet people. Like I can sit here and be friendly and check people in. I can serve in the concession stand. I can do all kinds of things to help get people hyped up. I can be that leader by setting the tone during worship and being that example for other people and how we worship. I can be the leader that sits in the seats next to other students and models for them how we take notes and why we bring our Bibles. I can be that student that models for other students, but through being a small group leader that says, hey, you know what? You need to come and join a small group. I can be that person, and that doesn't just do it here, but I can be that person that goes to my school and does it as well. She called me Michael. I like that. Here we go. You each have a gift. Look with me a few chapters earlier in Romans chapter 12. I got to go. Romans chapter 12. Here's what it says, verses 6, 7, and 8. In his grace, God, underline it, God has given us different gifts. God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. Okay? Now, I need you to understand something. You have gifts to do certain things well, which also tells me that there's probably some things that you don't do well. So let's just state this from the very beginning, okay? We're not going to put you in a position to do something that you don't do well. That's not our desire. Our desire is to help you use your gifts to do the things that God has called you to do and do them well. And then it gives us some examples. So it goes on to say, so if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. Verse 7, if your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Now, notice in here, you do not see any type of gifting for being negative and critical and tearing people down. That's not a gift from God. Y'all hearing me? So there is not a gift of, well, Pastor Mike, I'm really good at being critical. I'm really good at, just being negative, Actually, Pastor Mike, I don't even know why I said that. I'm just really bad at it, That was a joke for somebody being really good at being negative. Get it? Apparently not. That one went over your head. Look up here at me. These verses tell us that there's gifts for serving, that there's gifts for being kind, that there's gifts for being encouraging. And in this room right now, there are a bunch of people that I am looking at that are capable and have gifts to be kind and to do it gladly, that have gifts to be leaders and step up and lead well. There are people in here that have gifts to be encouraging and to pray with people and to do all of these things well. And I'm just going to tell you, if you've never been told that before, we need your gifts. This is why it's a big deal to us when students discover their gifts and use them to serve. So here's what we want to do here at Cedar Point Students. Here's how we know whether or not we are winning. Let's look back at them. First point. How do we know that we're winning? When somebody, a student, is introduced to a real relationship with Jesus. That's the first step. You don't know anything about God. You want to know how we win? You're introduced to a real relationship with Jesus. Your next step from there is when you get connected to a small group. That's a win for us because you're no longer doing life in your old way, but you're doing a new life with people that are in the same course as you. You're telling us by joining a small group that you're ready to grow in your relationship with God and become who God wants you to be. But it doesn't stop there. Then you've got to go and be that person that builds other people up and take that next step in the things of God. And you do that by discovering your gifts and using them to serve others because God uses people. And God wants to use each one of you. Now, I know I'm talking a lot about the church and wanting us to win. But just think about this with me for a second, okay? Think about these wins. And you know what the big deal to me is? Is when students do those things. But you know what's even a bigger deal to me? Is that you win. That you win. Now think about the wins that we just talked about tonight. Think about you having a real relationship with Jesus. Because here's what I believe. I believe if you have a real relationship with Jesus, that you'll win. Because you know what Jesus is? He's the source of all comfort. Growing up being a teenager right now can feel very lonely at times. And God, who is the source of all comfort, can be that comfort to you in those moments. So that's a win for you when he's there. That God gives peace beyond anything we could ever think or imagine or even understand. And in this life as a middle school and as a high schooler, there's going to be a lot of things and a lot of times where you're just like, I don't get this. I don't understand what's going on. And in that moment, God's going to be able to give you peace. So isn't it a win for you if you have a real relationship with Jesus? How about this one, where you need direction in your life? You're like, God, I don't know what to do with my friend right now. She's acting crazy. He's acting crazy. I don't know what to do. Do I cut him off? Do I step away from him? God, how do I go throughout this whole entire situation that I'm being faced with? God will give you direction and he'll reveal the steps to you that you need to take. So when you have a real relationship with Jesus, that's a win for you. Now let's think about the next one when you get connected to a small group. Anybody here ever had a friend get you in trouble? Yeah, right? Now, some of y'all are like pointing at your friends and like, let me just say so. You're like, okay. Look up here at me. Put them down. This is important. We got to hurry. Oh, I got to go. Here's the thing. When you get around the right people, the things that you think are funny, the direction that you're going to go with your life will completely change. As somebody who's been through middle school, as somebody who's been through high school, somebody who's been in college, as somebody who's been a youth pastor for 8 years, I can just tell you this, the people that you surround yourself with are the most important decision that you will make when you're in middle school and when you're in high school. That is the most important decision that you will make right now. So it's important that you surround yourself with people that have the same direction with their lives that you want to have. And so when you get plugged into a small group, you're going to get to know those people and be revealed that. So that's a win for you. Now, let's think about the last win. When you discover your gifts and use those to serve and make a difference in somebody's life. There is no greater feeling than allowing God to use you to make a difference in someone else. And when you realize that God has entrusted you for a purpose, it is the most fulfilling feeling that there possibly is. And when you know what that purpose is, it's even better. It's a win for you when you discover your gifts and use them to serve other people. So I say all this stuff to say this, that yes, these are our wins as a student ministry, but I want to make it personal and say it's my win, it's our win for each one of you if you will go through these steps. And then it'll lead to more people, which is obviously what we want to do because we want to see the kingdom of heaven grow. So here's what I want to do. Every head bowed, every eye closed. Nobody talking. Really quickly, in this moment, I want to give you the opportunity to take that first step.